Hello everybody, welcome back to Screen Stars, welcome to another of my classic film reviews, and today's classic film review is for the 1989 comedy film See No Evil, Hear No Evil, a film that is directed by Arthur Hiller and it stars Richard Pryor, Gene Wilder, Joan Severance and Kevin Spacey. Now, this film focuses on Richard Pryor's character Wally and Gene Wilder's character Dave. Now, Wally is blind and Dave is deaf, and they come together quite early in the film. Gene Wilder's character Dave runs like a newsstand in a hotel, I think it is, something like that, and Wally, Richard Pryor's character, comes to try and get a job. Now there's hilarity in regards to that, you know, because one's blind, one's deaf, and he ends up getting a job working there. Between them they end up witnessing a crime. Bucket ends up being killed by Joan Severance's character, who partners with Kevin Spacey. They're both like two hitmen really. Now Dave witnesses the crime, or some of the crime. He sees Joan Severance's character walking away, and Richard Pryor's character Wally hears the gunshot, so he hears the crime. Now they end up getting arrested and taken to the police station, and the cops put two and two together and come away with 10. They end up trying to pin the crime on Wally and Dave, and they end up trying escaping from the police and have no choice but to try and solve the crime themselves. Now, what are my thoughts on See No Evil, Hear No Evil? Well, this is a comedy classic. There's no getting around it. It just is a comedy classic. Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder have paired together on screen 4 times, I believe. So we got Silver Streak, Stir Crazy, See No Evil, Hear No Evil, and they did another one called Another You, I believe it was called. Now, many would probably regard Stir Crazy as their best, and I'm not really going to argue there. I would probably agree that Stir Crazy is their best, but many would also argue that this is either their best or certainly their second best on-screen pairing. And the chemistry is undeniable between these two. I don't know what it is, they just work magic together on screen. And it is also my understanding that and I haven't read Gene Wilder's memoirs or autobiography, but apparently it mentions in there that, you know, that chemistry didn't translate off screen and they weren't that close away from film, which surprises me. You know, it really gives the impression that these two guys were the best of friends, and that's clearly not the case. Either way, they created some magic on screen, and this, you know, I mean, the premise itself, one deaf, one blind, is just comedy gold. Now, with lesser actors, this couldn't have worked, because I'll be honest, there are aspects of this film that aren't brilliant. You know, the script is pretty predictable. Some of the dialogue is fairly cringeworthy, certainly for some of the other characters. We've got weak bad guys here, weak villains. Kevin Spacey, this is clearly one of his earlier roles, and when you think that just a few years after this he got his first Oscar for The Usual Suspects, his acting, I think, is pretty appalling in this film. Joan Severance does decent job here. She's mainly, I suppose, you could argue, just there for the eye candy with her character and things like that. Very, very pretty. And if it wasn't for Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor, this film could have easily been a massive misfire, a massive dud. But they make this work, this film. They make the script work, and they make it literally hilarious. I'm sure they probably ad-libbed some of it. I don't know that for sure, but I'm guessing so. And that you know, they'll be put in these crazy situations, and some of the stuff they come out with, you'll just, you know, you'll be spitting your drink out your mouth. It's that funny. It's laugh out loud funny. Some of the one-liners they come out with and some of the things they say to each other are just brilliant. But also, there's a real heart to the film. with these two guys, this genuine affection that they have for each other, translates so well on screen, and they have some genuinely heartwarming conversations between the comedy. That's what keeps the film connected to you. And the reason you feel this connection to these characters is because they perform them so well, and they make them so lovable that you can't help but root for them in this ridiculous situation that they're in. Easily, if they'd have put lesser actors in these roles, this film would have easily have been a misfire, because it did quite surprise me watching this, and I rewatched it on Netflix just a few days ago. It did really surprise me how some aspects of the film were a bit, a bit cringy and a bit, and they just didn't work. Like I say, some of the dialogue and some of the script and some of the predictability of it. But then the next scene, I'd be literally hurting with laughter, laughing at what Gene Wilder has said and done, or Richard Pryor has said and done. So it's a situational comedy, and maybe it's because I'm a Brit as well. I mean, I know this film is probably loved the world over, but we Brits like situational comedies, and this is certainly, you could argue, a situational comedy, the situation that they're in, and the scrapes they get themselves in and how they get out of them as well. So it's a remarkable film in some ways, especially when you consider that Richard Pryor was probably, he was certainly showing signs of his illness in this film that eventually, wasted him away. I think it 2005 he passed, something like that. But it was even more apparent in his next film that he made with Gene Wilder, Another You, which was several years after this. But they still, you still managed to put that behind you. You still enjoy this film for what it is. It is genuinely hilarious at times, but yes, there are aspects of it that haven't dated, I think, particularly well, but it is still a very, very strong comedy. Definitely one of the strongest of the decade, the 80s, and a brilliant Richard Pryor, Gene Wilder film. So I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. Very, very entertaining, still very, very funny. And if you haven't seen this film, you need to check it out, because I'm sure you will find aspects of it hilarious too. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review, and of course I will be back with more content on Screen Stars very, very soon.